Mike Miles has been the state-appointed superintendent of Houston ISD for more than 2 years now. The state's takeover of the largest public school district in Texas was and remains controversial. Nevertheless, Miles has sought to raise school accountability ratings, and in fact, the number of D and F-rated schools in the district has dropped in that time from 121 to 18, and no campus has received an F in this year's ratings. Yet still, questions and criticism remain about the superintendent's methods and approach, especially for his new education system, a reform effort featuring centralized curriculum standards across campuses with lesson plans prepared for teachers in advance. Superintendent Miles, welcome back to the program. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Craig.
As we chat with the superintendent, we welcome you to our conversation with questions and comments at 713-440-8870 or talk@houstonmatters.org. You can also comment on the video stream on Houston Public Media's YouTube channel. Before we dive into curriculum and some of those ongoing questions and concerns, on Monday, the Trump administration announced it would pay 50% of food stamp benefits for this month as the federal government shutdown drags on. That still leaves a large gap in nutrition for many kids in your district, and I understand the district is prepared to step up and help fill that gap. How so?
Yes, so we already have a lot of food banks at our Sunrise centers, but last weekend we worked with Houston Food Bank to provide food distribution at one of our stadiums, and then every weekend for the next 4 weekends, I believe we will work with the Houston Food Bank to provide distribution of food at Hattie Mae. That's the administration building.
How are you getting the word out to families about that?
So we've been getting the word out through our HISD Now, through our email system, and what's our system called Parent Square, which most parents have signed up for to get information from the district. So HISD Now is our streaming service. So both of those will have information for our parents and families. We're also going to continue food distribution at least once a week at our Sunrise centers, apart from the regular pantries that we have there. So we're trying to do our part, and I know the city, a lot of other city organizations are doing their part, and I think this is what we need to do. Everybody's stepping up to help our families at this time.
All right, let's dive into curriculum. Late last month, Houston Chronicle senior columnist Lisa Falkenberg appeared on this program to talk about her column in which she contended some district elementary school teachers felt compelled to hide teaching or giving kids books to read that were not among the officially approved materials under the NES framework. How do you respond?
Well, Lisa needs to do better research. You know, having 6 anonymous people make statements like that, it's just not accurate, and it's not professional. It's harmful to the profession, actually. So I've been in schools all the time. We have books for kids. We read books to kids. We also have novels for our 3rd through 11th graders. At least 3 novel studies every year. The kindergartners, and she was talking about kindergartners, as if they don't have any books. I have a list here, and she received the same list of 122 books that are read to kids. And, you know, they're stories.
Are these the actual physical books themselves, or is it
summaries
of those books, or
so for
or
the
some
kindergarten,
variation
they don't always get the books, the physical books, although there's many that are physical. These are books that are read to them, and then we also have 66 decodable books that are also given to the kids in kindergarten, 1st grade.
What does decodable mean?
Decodable are books where we focus on phonics, but they're still stories. They're still books, but they're more focused on the phonemic awareness and letter fluency, those sorts of things.
Let's talk about the sort of the bigger, perhaps, point of her column, and at least the discussion that we had with her here on Houston Matters. Do you accept the notion that age-appropriate physical books in their entirety, either being read by teachers to students or read by the teachers themselves, that's part of the process, the key to cultivating a passion for reading?
So let's dive into that. First of all, her premise was wrong. We do have books. That her main point was that we don't we're not reading books to kids, to kindergartners. Now, many kindergartners can't read. People understand that, so
Right.
they need books read to them. And we do almost every day. And so that's the main point of her story, and that's what I want to correct the record on.
Okay.
So, and that should have been easily researched. In fact, we gave her the information, and she just reported it wrong anyway. But the other part of her narrative or her discussion with you is how kids learn to read. And back in October 2022, a lady named Emily Hanford, you probably know, wrote a podcast or made a podcast called Sold a Story. And it was very popular and still is. And it was a person who did real research and said, look, we've had this vision of how kids learn to read in the profession for some time. And we call it the reading wars. And the question is, do kids learn to read by having books read to them and where you just give them books and stories that are interesting? And if you give a kid an interesting story and you give them a beanbag to read on, to sit on, they're going to learn to read. That's been debunked. Emily Hanford concluded what we already know, what reading experts already know, and that it takes a lot more than reading to kids. It takes a lot more than novels. Doesn't mean you should not read to kids, and does not mean you shouldn't have novels. In fact, I have lists here, if you want to see them, of the novels we actually do studies on in the school, and actual books. But it's way more than that. The science of reading really, and I don't want to get too technical, it is a science, there has to be orthographic mapping. Students need to hear and see the words, yes, and also then look at the words to see, to make sure that the sound matches the words that they hear, or the letters that they hear, and the sounds that they make, and the ones that they see also. So you have to spend a lot of time. The listeners may know that as phonics. And so you have to spend a lot of time on that. You have to spend time decoding. On top of that, content matters. So there's a series of content that kids need from the early grades through high school. Vocabulary matters. And all of this has to be staged and put together in a way where the kids can learn to read and then read to learn. So it's important. It's difficult. It's complex, and you can't just have kids listen. And teachers who we no longer have many of them, and we don't have teachers running around hiding books because there's a lot of books. That's ridiculous. There may be one or two, and that's just not professional. But teachers have always found it easier to read to kids rather than kids learning to read, teaching kids how to read. And you need both. And so that's what the profession has gotten to. And we do that very well, and that's why way more kids are reading today than ever before at grade level in Houston ISD than ever before. That's why we have science of reading teachers as well as English language arts teachers. Think about how tough it is to get teachers in a profession who were trained in a different way to now teach a science of reading. Even now, because of people like Lisa Falkenberg and others who actually don't know about the science of reading and popularize this, let's just read to kids, let's just give them a lot of books, even though we know that's not the way to do it. In California, for example, they wanted to pass legislation, or at least policy, to get teachers to select a new curriculum, a district to select new curricula based on the science of reading. And the teachers union voted it down, even though it's not those groups or books like Fontes and Pinnell, Lucy Calkins, they have been debunked, and yet 70% of all teachers in America are still using curricula that is not tied to the science of reading. That's how hard it is, and we've been able to change that in HISD, with a lot of professional development, a lot of work, and a lot of sticking to what really works for kids.
I have a lot of questions to read to you and get your response to. Let's dive into them. This first one comes from a text. Superintendent Miles, my ninth grader attends a magnet high school and is taking above-level courses, yet even there, the English class feels robotic. Slides, AI-generated passages, and multiple-choice questions. The teacher is new, likely uncertified, and there's no enrichment or engagement. Students who used to love learning now describe their classes as worthless. Do you have any remorse or second thoughts about imposing such a one-size-fits-all model that strips away creativity, teacher expertise, and meaningful learning even in our top schools?
Yeah, this is a narrative that keeps coming up, and it's not an accurate narrative. First of all, this is narrative by anecdote or generalization by anecdote. Are there some teachers who are not as skilled at teaching? And are there some teachers that just go through slides and just read the slides or something like that? Are there some worksheets that are boring to some kids? I mean, some kids have found school boring since the beginning of time, regardless of whether the teacher's good or not. And so these anecdotes don't mean much to me compared to my hundreds of visits to school. I was at a school this morning. I'm at schools every week. I go and I watch teachers who either teach very well or progressing. I watch how principals coach them. I watch teachers. I talk to kids in the team centers. And yes, school is rigorous. It should be. But they also have fun, and kids have fun learning. Talk to them. Ask them. And when they're learning, they're having fun. When they're not learning, they're not having fun. And in the schools that, apparently there's just worksheets, they don't actually know how the classes are set up. And then the proof is in the pudding, which is kids are doing well, and kids are learning and reading well. The parents whose kids are reading well are now proficient. They're not complaining. And the kids who are proficient now and can read, they like reading more. They're the ones who will go to libraries. So, no, I don't have any regrets about making sure that we went from 93 A and B campuses to 197. I don't have any regrets about reducing the amount of schools that are F, D, and F to 121 to 18. I don't have regrets about that.
Let me ask you, though, on that. How do you respond to critics that say the metrics of accountability have changed and maybe the improvement is hiding some serious problems?
Yeah, that's a narrative that doesn't pan out well when you talk about TEA's metrics. We want to argue about TEA's metrics? Let's do that. TEA's had the same rigorous metrics, and yes, they made the tests more rigorous. So our doing better on it is a good thing for our kids. NWEA, another test we're doing really well on, just revised their norms, and because the whole country has done worse as far as reading proficiency and math proficiency, so they lowered their bar. So compared to that, we're even better now compared to the rest of the nation. So by every metric, NWA, DIBELS, TEA's assessment, and AEP, we've done better. So we can argue about the goalposts. I didn't set them. They're still rigorous. And here's the fact at the end of the day. More kids can read at grade level. You want to measure that with NWA? You want to measure it with TEA? What do you want to do? Measure it somehow. I'm letting TEA do it because they also have experts, and they've been doing this a long time, and we are much stronger on those metrics. I didn't create them. I didn't create the STAR exam. But I can tell you this, if you can read at grade level, you're going to pass the STAR exam. If you can't, you won't.
Christine, an HISD parent, writes, we've recently left our beloved school after trying NES for a year for a non-NES school. We gave it a go for a year, but ultimately the endless focus on test prep was to the detriment of actual education. My children have had a hard time transitioning back to non-NES because the academics are actually more rigorous, more challenging, and more educational. She asks, why do you keep dismissing, denying, and ignoring our concerns about NES? Wouldn't HISD families be the most valuable voices?
Yeah. So again, I don't go with anecdotes, and I've heard this thing about test prep forever. I haven't heard one person define it. I talked to a gentleman the other day who said his schools are run, not in HISD, and they do test prep. So if a person gets an ACT test prep book, which a lot of parents have done in the past and kids have done, or SAT prep, or a MCAT test, or preparing for the bar exam test, and they study that, and then they pass those rigorous exams, is that test prep? If you test kids on what you're teaching them, is that test prep? So let's define that, because it's just thrown out there like, oh, we're test prepping, and we don't do test prep. We teach what kids are supposed to know and be able to do, and then we assess them on it. And if that's what test prep means, then fine. But remember, I'm the one who said we're not going to stop for 2 weeks. The union got mad that we're not going to stop for 2 weeks and just do practice tests. Practice tests are test prep, and we don't do that. We also have so many other things that have nothing to do with the STAR exam. I haven't heard this person talk about art of thinking. It's a third grade through 10th grade, 90 minutes 3 times a week. We have our own assessments for that. It's not counted by STAR. We invest a lot of money in critical thinking, information literacy, and problem solving. So where's the test for that? Are we going to get any credit for that? No. All we're doing is helping kids learn to think and be critical thinkers and problem solvers. We have the dyad program in the NES. I haven't heard this station or anybody else talk about the pianos, the photography, the gardening, the extra fitness, the dance, the cosmetology, the extra things that kids get 3rd grade through 8th grade. We call it dyad, and it's on top of electives. And our kids know it. Our parents of the NES know it. And so they're doing a lot more than reading and math.
How much time is devoted to that each week?
90 minutes each time, 3 times a week.
Okay.
That's a lot of time for art of thinking. For dyad, it's twice a week, 90 minutes each time. So that's a lot of time for extra stuff. And then the main thing, though, in our profession and for kids who are behind, and in the NES world, most of those schools were underserved. Those were the 121. Of the 121 DNF campuses, 108 of them are the NES, were NES schools.
Let's dive into a couple of phone calls. We have Roberto on the line from the Museum District. Roberto, what's your question or comment?
Yeah, Craig, first of all, thank you so much for having the superintendent on. It's a wonderful opportunity to speak to him directly. Superintendent, let me be the first and the last to thank you for what you're trying to do in HISD. I taught in HISD for almost 25 years. It is difficult. And I taught in black inner city schools because I admire Martin Luther King greatly and I wanted to help that particular group. But it's very difficult. And part of the difficulty is the union. I'll go ahead and say it. And so my question is this. Again, thank you for your work. I think it's sincere and it's really important to have someone like you. Who are you accountable to? In other words, who's going to tell you, Mr. Miles, you've done enough. Thank you so much. And what do you think your legacy will be or want it to be when you leave? Thank you.
All right. Thanks for the call and the questions.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I'm accountable to the Board of Managers and to the Texas Education Agency. The Commissioner, Mike Miles, is actually the one who we'll end the intervention at the right time.
Have they given you any indication of when that might be?
What he said in public has been at the end of remember, at the end of last year, he said, well, we're going to go at least 2 more years. And probably at the end of those 2 years, which is not this year, but 1 more year, he will start a transition. So I think that's probably what's going to happen. But I don't speak for the commissioner, so the end of the intervention is up to him. With regard, so accountability, that's the one answer. And legacy, I'm actually not here for legacy, of course. I'm here to make sure the kids get the best education and get ready for the year 2035. But I can tell you, I'm part of a group of people who've already made history in Houston. And my colleagues and people in the education profession who know this work just like you, sir, the caller who knows about education and how tough it is, really are very proud of what's happening in Houston, and a lot of people in Houston too. I don't mean to say that people in Houston don't, but in the education world, outside of Houston, and in and around Houston, people know that this has been one of the, if not the biggest transformation effort in the country, one of the biggest ever in the country, and one of the most successful already for helping kids read, write, do math, and get ready for year 2035. We have a lot of data around career tech ed and kids being more prepared for college, our CCMR scores, college career military readiness scores, things like that. So my team and the teachers, the principals, are doing right by kids. It's not easy, like the caller said. It's a big system, and we've been behind. And there's been a huge achievement gap, and we're narrowing that gap. And so people who, may not see that or may not understand the real challenge, it's understandable that they don't, but people outside and people who do know the challenge understand how successful this reform effort has been.
Let's go next to Christine. Christine, what's your question or comment?
Hi, yes, thank you. My name is Christine, and it was actually my daughter, Rose, who really offended you by saying NES is stupid, and no, she is not a teacher. So I found it really interesting that you were criticizing critical thinking when your reading comprehension needs some work. So what I really want to know is, you say that you've gone on hundreds of campus visits, and you use your personal anecdotes as data points, but refuse to acknowledge the anecdotes of parents and students who are there on campus hundreds of days a year. Like, we are on campus every day, but you say our anecdotes are not able to be extrapolated and generalized for the entire district. Yet your campus visits, which are highly orchestrated, televised, and like the most ass-kissing forward, are the real experience. Can you explain to me why you continue to dismiss what we are saying?
Yeah, I can. Once again, inaccurate information. Campus visits, televised and productive or performative, you have no idea. Okay, so because I've been in, when I say hundreds, I was in 151 schools the first year, 130 the second year, and I think I've been in 60 so far this year. That's a lot of visits. That's not an anecdote. An anecdote is when you have 1 or 2 examples, a story, a specific example that you then generalize. So when you say there are 6 anonymous teachers who say this about the district, and then you say, oh, so that must be the way the district runs, that's an anecdote. That's generalization by anecdote. That's what Lisa Falkenberg and you're trying to do right now. When I say out of the 273 schools, 240 of them or 230 of them do it this way, or I've seen this many times, that's not an anecdote. That's a looking at a huge sample size and making some conclusions based on expert knowledge of what's going on in the schools. That's a whole lot different than a person visiting the same school over and over again without expert knowledge.
Do the schools know you're coming to visit, and do specifically particular classrooms know you're coming to visit?
So sometimes the schools know and sometimes they don't. And by the way, I'm just one person who does school
Right.
visits. I mean, we had the chief of schools doing visits more than me. We had the division chiefs doing school visits more than me. So they all also, not anecdotally, they know what's going on in the schools for real. Second, I go where the spirit moves me. That's what I say when I'm there. So we go wherever I want to go. The principal doesn't know, where I want to go. But here's the other thing. You can tell if you're an expert in instruction, you can tell what's performing and what's not. You can tell if the kids are, doing this daily or not doing it daily. You can tell if they're actually writing on the quick response cards or not. And if you've ever been in middle school or elementary school, middle schoolers will not do anything performative. They're gonna do what they've always done. They don't care who I am. They don't care who the adults are. They care what their teacher is doing, and that's so. There's no performative. If you're an expert, you're going to be able to tell. I've been in hundreds and hundreds of schools, not just in Houston, and I've trained principals and teachers. We can tell. And so, no, it's not performative. It is actually trying to set the bar and looking at the quality of instruction.
Jessica wants to know about the new category of schools announced this year called Special Focus Schools. Jessica asks, when will HISD release an official document to the public that outlines what is required of the schools in this category and the requirements and timeline for exiting this category and recovering more autonomy?
Special focus schools are schools that receive more focus, but really more supports. And so we've added, for example, teacher apprentices to some of them, and learning coaches. That's more people who can help out in the schools. We've added AP assistant principals to some of them, and there's 19 special focus schools this year. So we've added more supports, and for most of them, we've helped them with their curriculum, and in some cases enforced the use of the HISD curriculum because that has helped. These are schools that are D or low C and are moving in the wrong direction pretty considerably, lower and lower achievement for the students. So they will receive that special focus, and we believe that's going to help, just like what we've done the first 2 years. And so there's no real end or beginning. Next year we might have several other focus schools, or we'll have some of these will no longer be special focus.
Mark follows up asking, teachers at special focus schools were notified of major instructional shifts shortly after their contracts were signed. Parents and students only learned of these changes through the media long after enrollment deadlines and after the new programs were already being implemented. Superintendent, he asks, is that fair or trust building?
So, look, we no longer have time to sit around, have a committee, and then figure out how many weeks we're going to do before we change something. We are moving quickly because the kids don't have any time. We'll do it in a way that makes sense, and we'll do it in a way where the teachers can handle it and the principals can handle it, and it will have very little impact on a child. They will get good instruction, and they will. And some parents think they should be involved in the curriculum. No, we're not gonna ask that. We're gonna move quickly so that our kids get the best instruction they need right away. And so the special focus school hasn't been that much different than what we've already been doing. We're providing a little bit more focus, and yes, in some cases we said we're gonna change the curriculum because it's stronger, it's better. It's already prepared, teacher, so you can handle that. We're gonna give it to you, and we're gonna make copies for you So is it a change? Yeah, a little bit of one, but it's better for the kids. And so yes, you're gonna start using it next week.
Dawn writes, my daughter's a student at Energy Institute High School, one of the 4 HISD high schools moving forward with SB 1882 partnerships. She asks, can you share more about what this means for the future of the school? And I guess I should clarify, these are schools that are allowed to partner with a charter, a nonprofit, or some other outside group. And your district announced recently high-performing schools could receive more autonomy if they did so.
Yes, we're offering this at least this year to high schools who have 4 years of an A rating in a row, at least 4 years, and that have a minority achievement gap of less than 25%. And they'll work to get that even smaller. And so it's totally voluntary, and it's to give them full autonomy. So what does that mean? Right now, we already have defined autonomy levels. The special and unique schools, like Energy Institute and HSPVA, DeBakey, Carnegie, they already have level 4 autonomy. What they don't have autonomy over is the calendar, the school, the number of days. They all have to use the teacher evaluation system that we have. They all have to use the principal evaluation system. And they have to improve the quality of instruction. So nobody has autonomy over those. But in the 1882 partnership, they will have autonomy over even that. They'll have full autonomy. So the only thing they have to do is what's required by law. For example, they have to take the STAR exam. So they would have full autonomy, and the 4 schools have volunteered. They will form their own partnerships, meaning their own 501c3. The Chronicle made it seem like we're looking for outside partners like KIPP or Yes Prep, or nothing wrong with those schools, by the way, but we're not. HSPVA already has Friends of HSPVA 501c3. That organization is going to be the partner group.
I have this follow-up question, though, from Elizabeth, who asks, how does transforming high-performing campuses into charters help meet exit criteria for TEA intervention? Does it?
First of all, they're not a charter. They're an 1882 partner.
Right.
It's different because the 1882 partner...
But those could be charters, right? Charter organizations could become one of those partners. Just like any other
charter organizations could become an 1882. In this case, they won't.
Right.
Because we're not looking for charters. We're looking for our own 501c3s. And even in the charter case, the building stays with the district, and the contract can be ended by the district.
Does it get you any closer, though, to exiting TEA intervention? I would think not.
No, these are schools that have A rating 4 years in a row.
Right.
They're not going to go down to D or F.
I promised you before we started we'd get you out of here by 9:45. We're closing in on it.
Oh, wow.
If parents, teachers, or others have questions that we didn't get to, can we pass those along to you? Would you respond to them?
Yeah, I mean, parents can always ask questions of the district, and we will get back to them.
What's the easiest way to do that?
You can go on the website and ask a question there.
All right. Mike Miles is the superintendent of Houston ISD. Superintendent Miles, thank you so much for the time.
Yeah, thank you.